Hey, everybody. Welcome to another episode of the Lost Coast podcast. Today, I have Ian Tolson with us, and he's going to give us a little story about how he got started in his business and what he's doing for everybody. So, Ian, welcome to the show.
Thanks. Glad to be here.
Good, good. So, listeners are here. They're excited to hear what you got to say. So, why don't you tell us a little bit about yourself, how you got started, and where you've been and how you got here, and make it exciting.
Sounds good. I'd say one of the number one things that led me on my journey was just an act of wanting to continuously go in a better direction, not being complacent about where I am in life, thinking, oh, I've made it. Even though it's good to acknowledge where I've come from and go to and how well I am doing, never to get to that point where I say I'm doing good enough now and I can stop trying. And that started pretty young for me. I went through a transition of getting put onto drugs at a pretty young age by the school because they thought it was a good idea because they were trying to handle some type of disease that I had, and that wasn't actually true at all. And on my own decision-making process, I said, not to any of the adults, but I told myself, you know what, the drugs aren't the solution. Fixing my diet is the solution. What they're trying to fix is like a behavior thing, and healthy eating will fix that behavior thing. And I just knew that, and I was correct. Somehow I just instinctively followed that advice. And that was really the start. And that's been my journey from where I was no older than 10 years old to where I am today. And it's just been like kind of making good decisions, bad decisions, good decisions, bad decisions, and just slowly getting to the point where I went from being literally homeless on the streets, not eating for days at a time, losing weight because of it, having people tell me I looked hungry. Like that was an actual comment that someone said to me once, to getting to the point where I own a property, I rent it out, I work full time, I have an entrepreneur side gig outside of that, in addition to things. And it all stems from this viewpoint of just, I need to just improve where I'm at, not to be complacent, and just to continue going.
Awesome. I mean, it's amazing what you can do as a child and where you see things. And most children at that age are just kind of complacent. They just kind of do what they're told. It's nice to hear that you kind of like said, nah, I don't think I'm gonna do this. I think I can fix this on my own. I mean, taking that control is just an amazing piece in itself. I mean, and then to go into childhood and then you're getting into adulthood. And I mean, being homeless had to be kind of a nerve-wracking experience there for a while. I mean, I couldn't imagine. I've never been homeless, and probably be good for me if I'm going to lose weight, though. From what you say, I could use a few days of hunger.
You're so funny.
But so that's great. So what are you here today to teach our listeners?
I would say that if someone can just find the places, times of day, and the right people to surround yourselves with, and to persistently work on those actions that will help someone get to where they need to go. Because what I have seen for myself and others by observation is when they finish work, they'll go home. They will watch TV. They'll do that for some time frame, and then they will go to bed. And that is a time, a place, and a location. And if you can change, and also the people, right? So time, place, location, people. If you can change that all by itself, if you can focus in on those little things to a slightly better alternative to that, then that's all someone would need to do on a continuous basis to push themselves into a higher and higher range. One thing that I've really, really struggled with is how do I get myself to focus? Because I try to be productive. And what I noticed for many hours is that I would just scroll on the phone and scroll on the phone and scroll on Facebook and scroll on TikTok and scroll on Instagram. And it was like, how am like I can't I just spent like an hour doing this. This is ridiculous on myself. Like I'm just like I'm actually upset, absurdly upset with myself that I just like wasted an hour. I could have been calling someone. I could have been reaching out. I could have been contacting someone individually. I could have been doing a podcast episode. I could have been trying to network with someone that really could have been of value. And I had to figure out, okay, I realized one day that I was like, I can't do this at my house. I just can't. For whatever reason, I just sit there and I scroll and I scroll and I scroll. And then I would go and I had to start going into public places. I realized that because when I was in school, I could focus a little better when I was in school. And school is it's a public setting where you're around other people who are also working, doing an activity. It's a certain time of day. And I realized that if I shift, I can't go back to a school, like that would be weird, even though there is like a community college and sometimes I'll go to use their library. But you can go to like a Barnes and Nobles and I'll use their Wi-Fi. And just for whatever reason, my mind would click and I would say, okay, I can be productive in that area. And it was only until yesterday that I realized the problem I'm running into is scrolling. And I said, okay, good. If I can just change that one thing, if I can just change that one thing and not scroll, how can I do this? Well, I have a spreadsheet on Google Sheets. And if I can just stick to the sheet, then I can remain focused. I skip the scrolling and I can be anywhere. I'm no longer tightened down to say I have to go to like, and I was like, this is absurd. I have to go to a different place just to work. Like, what if it's Christmas and I'm trying to be productive? I can't just go to the library. This is nonsense. So I finally realized that it's just Google Sheets for me anyway. I realized that it's Google Sheets. And if I can just pinpoint, okay, click on this link and only go to the link, no scrolling, then that's the turnaround thing that I took away from it. But the thing that a listener could grab from this is just finding, okay, where are you most productive? What times of day are you most productive? And who are the people that you need to surround yourself with in order to push yourself to that next level? Because if you're hanging around broke friends and family members, and you might love them to death, and that's awesome that they are in your life and you have them, they might not be the right people. Like, still keep them in your life for sure, but they might not be the right people that you need to get from point A to point B.
I can't agree more. I mean, it's funny how that the friends, the family, all that kind of stuff, they're your circle, and I get it. They're your friends, they're the close ones, they're the ones you built some really strong relationships with.
Of course.
But when you really get down, like you say, to that brass tacks of it, they could be holding you back. They could be discouraging you from doing what you need to be doing, basically because they're comfortable with you being there. They feel if you do something else, they might lose you. So they do everything they can to keep you close. It's that we see it all the time. I mean, it happens in pretty much, I would think, every industry, everything. Everybody kind of gets upset, oh, they're going to go do this. I don't think that's such a good idea. Well, why? What are you afraid of? It's not going to hurt them physically or mentally, really. They're just trying something. Support them in it. Support.
Exactly.
And that's kind of what you're saying, go find your new support group, whatever it may be, like I say, if it's a public library or if it's, sitting on a park bench with people playing around, whatever it does to keep you focused, it's going to work.
Yeah, what we're talking about here is you want growth and they want you to be safe. And sometimes growing doesn't equal safety.
Yep.
And so you can still be safe and grow, but I think those are the two concepts that can kind of grab onto people that we're talking about here on a like a theoretical level.
Oh no, it's I'm not even sure it's theoretical. I think it's the way it is. You're right, because if I can relate to it in the financial industry I'm in, right? People got their money and they want to protect it so much, but it don't grow then.
No, yes, you're right.
So you got to have some risk to have some growth. You got to let go of it. You can't keep it in your mattress. It's not going to
Yes.
grow.
No,
You got to let somebody else do something with it, put it somewhere else. Get some education, go find different things to do something with it. If it's financially, or if it's just like you say, yourself and your mental growth and your and growing whatever you're trying to produce. You got to give out a little bit of control, let some control go.
of course. And I completely agree with you there. I had someone in my school come by when I was in a sophomore in high school. And the one thing they talked about was to invest money. Obviously with the right person. Like
Yeah.
if you're not doing it the right person, then it's like completely. But we're talking about with the right people, invest your money. And I listened to that advice and I always knew in the back of my mind that I needed to do it. But it wasn't until 10, 15 years later that I was like, okay, now I'm able to do it. Now I have my mind and situation set up correctly. And now they've doubled, tripled, quadrupled my money since then. And I'm very grateful. So I completely agree with you. Like no, the main problem that we're talking about with this is that inflation will kick out anything you're trying to save. And so when you're investing your money, then you have to get it to double itself. But then you also have to keep in mind that inflation is going to affect this. And so year after year, you have to not only invest, but you have to invest a little bit more to keep up with inflation. I think it's kind of a hard pill to swallow at times, just because it's like, you want me to do what with my money?
Yeah, yeah, no, that's everybody's scared of it, and I get it. I mean, who wants to lose everything they've worked so hard for? Be it, their money or their house or their car.
Yeah,
You hold them things kind of personal to you when you work so hard to get it. You finally get that one little dream piece, and you don't want to lose it ever again. So you want to
right.
protect it with everything you got. I mean, I always find it funny. Give it enough time though, like in the new cars, I always love it. People get a new car, man, they wash it every weekend,
Of
they keep it
course.
in the garage. Give them 5 years. It's not the same.
Yeah, of course.
Yeah,
Of course. Yeah. It's just
yeah,
not.
yeah. So that's what we're saying. You can get comfortable. So you got to keep getting to that uncomfortable situation and making things better. So in
Yes.
5 years, you got to get a new car. So you
Yes.
can have another car to wash, add to your dreams.
I agree with you. There was a great piece of information that I looked up one time, and where the word comfort actually comes from. If I'm remembering this correctly, somebody could look it up for themselves. The history of the word comes from the idea of a belt. Like a comfort zone, in a sense, is a belt. And the thing that blows my mind about the idea of a comfort zone is you had to reach a certain point in your life of being comfortable to get there. You're not born into a comfort zone. You reach a comfort zone in your life, and then at some point we say, okay, I'm happy now. This is what I want and need. And I look at it and I see people like in relationships, for example, and I'm single, by the way, but this blows my mind because I've observed this, and I see people who are in a relationship, they're together, right? You think that would be enough. And what are they doing? They're texting.
Yeah.
Not even looking at each other. They're just sharing the same space. And I'm like, isn't the idea to have like a really engaging, high communication sort of level of a relationship? But at some point they just thought, this is where we're comfortable at, and this is where we want to be, and this is good. And that's fine if that's the way it is. But I mean, I'm always just looking for a little bit more. Like I want, and it's not even like anything ridiculous to think about, but every day I'm just thinking, okay, how do I make these small improvements, these little tiny things that can just increase my life just a little bit, and doing it across a lot of different things, not just thinking it in one thing of like, oh, I want to be physically more active, or I want to eat better, or I want to work on this entrepreneur thing a little bit more. Just operating like that across my
Yeah.
entire life.
Yeah. All your seven senses, I think is what they say. Yeah, your spirituality and all that kind of stuff.
Yeah.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. So you always bring up the cell phone, right? I mean,
Of course.
it's everybody's got one now. I mean, by the time a kid can just before they can even learn to talk, they have them, right?
Yeah, of course.
I mean, I'll be honest with you. I got this 6 years ago. I got a smartphone 6 years ago. That's how far behind the times I am.
That's cool. I
Yeah,
like
I had the flip phone because
it. Nice.
make the phone calls.
Yeah.
But that has changed everything. And I'll be honest with you, now that I've got it, hard to give it up too.
Oh,
We're
yeah.
all guilty of all these things. None of us are, I'm no monk, that's for sure. Maybe the closest thing to it, but not really.
You're funny. You're funny.
But they've taken over so much of this instantaneous gratitude that we've got now in society is that we want instant gratification so we can go somewhere and get it instantaneously. I mean, sure you remember, the phone used to be on the wall attached to a cord.
Yep.
And
I
if you
do.
want somebody's phone number, you either had to memorize it or look it up in the book. And nowadays, I don't remember a single phone number. It's all there in your contacts, and that's this gratification thing we have.
Mhm.
So, yeah, this is a great conversation, Ian, we're having
thanks,
today. What else can you give our listeners today? Kind of a piece of advice to think about.
A piece of advice that they could think with, easy to use, highly applicable. And I think something that really helps me out in my day-to-day life is deciding how to react to something. And it gets to different levels. So we can react how, when we hear bad news, or we can react on what someone says to us. We can react on when we want to eat or drink. And I pick eating specifically because I have been fasting. And fasting, for anyone that doesn't know, is intentionally not eating for a series of hours or sometimes days. And I think eating is a very interesting topic for myself because we are so personally, when I realized this, we are so ingrained to react to food.
Mm-hmm.
We want to eat at certain times. Like what I noticed is I want to eat at certain times of the day. And when we can kind of alter that idea, then we can also start altering other things as well. When getting a piece of bad news, or like if someone says, oh my gosh, we have all this work we to do, you can say, oh my gosh, you can go in agreement with you. Oh my gosh, all this work we have to do. Or you can say, great, what's the first thing we're doing? When talking to someone with a problem and saying, you can voice it and saying, you are doing such a terrible job and I can't believe this is happening and you're doing this poorly. Or you can say, I'm having troubles with the communication. There's certain things that I'm not getting. I'm trying to figure this out. How can we work together? It's a completely different conversation. And so when we can get to this idea, because I'm talking about eating and I'm talking about food and how does this all relate, it's the reactions that we have. And what I found is that when we can isolate our reactions to things, like taking a breath instead of, oh, my phone just went off, I need to respond to it. Turn all the notifications off on the phone. That's something you can do to help reduce the amount of stimulus somebody gets when they're on their day-to-day basis. And I found that the times that I spent less on my phone helped me react better to situations. Going for walks, just looking around, just kind of being in a space, not necessarily, oh, I have to go do this thing. I need to go play video games. I need to be on my phone. I need to text this person. It's good to be productive, but I think it can be shrouded or clouded or confused with the need to be on social media all the time, or the constant need to be doing something. I feel like as a society, as a culture, we've gotten to the point of overstimulating ourselves so much. And stimulus, I just mean things that make us react to stuff. We've
Right.
been caused into this position of I constantly need to be engulfed into something, or else I'm just not happy. Like as soon as I get bored, I want a reaction. I want a video. I want to laugh. I want a music. I want to, it just, it's so much. And if someone can just like go through their day, just take, just take a breath, look around, like go, just like observe stuff. Trees specifically, I heard, and I've seen this, and I've there was like a study done about it was in a certain place they were advising this as a form of medication, like doctors prescribing people to get like it was called like green therapy or something like that. I'd have to look more into it to get the wording that they used, but it was literally just going outside into nature, and they found that it improved people's mental states
Yeah.
just from doing that. There's actually another study that was done where people who were in the hospitals, the ones who were put in front of brick walls, took longer to heal than those who could see out and to see trees and like the outside areas. And I just think it's interesting, the whole topic, how it's like you would think that if someone could just be on a computer for the entire day and just sit there and type, that they could just will themselves through everything. But I have found very much so that we need a little bit more in a way to life of like getting out and kind of just being with like people and friends and like in nature and stuff that can really help a person too.
Yeah. Now, you got all this great information, it's great
Oh, thanks.
content stuff going on here. Now, you put on also these like little seminars, little webinars, these little get-togethers too, that people can come and come and meet you and talk to you, right? How do our listeners
Oh,
find you in those atmospheres?
great question. Easiest way to find me on that. I'm just gonna throw my phone number out there
Nope.
and tell people to text me.
All right.
Just text me. Because most people have a phone number. 720-422-0539. 720-422-0539. Just text me saying, hey, I want to attend the Monday night networking Zoom call, or just something along those lines. And I'll just send you the link for the Zoom call. You can hop right on. I think it's just been a wonderful adventure being able to connect with so many amazing people. And the cool thing about networking over time and collecting people's information is when you network with enough people, certain interesting things start to happen where someone and I've kind of become a phone book of information, because someone will say, hey, who is so and so, and I'll just be like, here you go. And someone else will come by and say, hey, who is so, and I'm like, here you go, here's the information right here. So not only is it that I am connecting people with other people, I hear these great stories, and it's happened way more than once now, where someone says, oh yeah, I bought products from that person, I signed a contract deal with that person. And I'm like, yes, like I don't even get anything out of doing this. It's awesome. I love that it's just a selfless sort of endeavor. Like I get benefits from it too, obviously, but I think the majority of my viewpoint is, how do I give to these people? How do I be of assistance? How do I be supportive of other people? Because I want them to win. I want them to succeed. And one of my favorite success stories was from a guy named AJ, and I'm sure he'll love me talking about this. He sent me an email after the first, I think it was like 2 weeks of attending the Zoom calls, and he was just very grateful, felt very fortunate to connect with someone else in my atmosphere about the advice that he was being given, and it was in the supplement field and just different things that were helping him out. And I wasn't actively even aware of this conversation even occurring And I find out about it, and that person that I connected with, the other person that helped him, Jeff, connected with him like 6 years ago.
Huh?
And it's just crazy how someone in my network that I connected with 6 years ago is connecting with someone in my network from like 2 months ago. And they're being supportive and invaluable assistance. And it's not like either of us were like trying to like make a bunch of money or something like that. Like it's
Right.
just, it's so much more about like, okay, how do I give? I just want to be valuable to other people. And if somebody else wants to hop on, that's amazing. And I would definitely love to just support and encourage them on their journey and help them in however I can.
Well, there you guys have it. Listeners, did you hear that? If nothing else, you got his phone number now. So, and Ian did say he was single, so keep that in mind.
That's fine. That's fine.
Not to throw you under the bus, Ian, but
no. I like where this is going. I got a wingman on my podcast, on this podcast here. This is good. This is good.
I'm always here to help.
Doing fantastic.
Oh, shoot. Well, you got anything else for our listeners before we sign off, Ian? What kind of want them to know?
You know, what would be something that most of your listeners like do or think with in terms of like, I don't know, like a day-to-day sort of thing?
I don't know, just people I think are always looking for some advice, kind of, give them like an entrepreneurial advice, like how to start their entrepreneurial career.
It's the one thing that I really loved about my entrepreneurial journey is that the more I spent focusing on me, the less I seemed to gain. And the more I spent focusing on helping others is the day I started to succeed.
Boy, that's you couldn't put it any better way. I mean, that's that, the whole giver's gain scenario, you reap what you sow what you reap, however you want to put it. That's exactly it right there, to give. Yeah, I couldn't agree with you more, Ian. And
Awesome.
so
I will add on to that one little thing is not to go beyond that point of reason where you're like, I'm giving too much either. There is like a healthy balance. Like give what you can, but also don't be excessive about it and be like, here's my house or here's my car.
yeah, we don't want to get carried away.
No, of course.
That's for sure. So anyways, Ian, it was great having you on the show today. We're gonna sign off here with the Lost Coast podcast. So again, Lost Coast podcast, we'll be signing off and we'll see you guys next time. Thank you very much for listening. Bye.